Low quality fans of a high quality Bruins team or low quality fans of a pretty high quality Panthers team. Welcome to the round one preview. It's going to be Bruins centric if there are any Panthers fans watching because this is a Bruins channel. But we're going to talk about both teams. We're going to talk about how they match up. We're going to talk about the interesting aspects about this series. And I got to tell you right now, I knew that I would convince myself, no matter who we got for the first round, that it was the worst possible matchup in the first round. I just knew it, because my brain just does that. I'm optimistic always. But it's just really easy to see your team be at the top and just get really concerned about the fall, you know? And the deeper I looked into this Panthers team, the more I went, this is a good team. This is better than your standard 8 seed. But the Bruins should still win this series. And I think anybody on the planet, including Panthers fans, will say, yeah, the Bruins should win this series. But it's hockey. So it doesn't exactly work that way, now does it? Two quick things before we dive into it. First of all, the bracket challenge is open. It is below. The link to it is below with the password right below that. The winner this year gets a low-quality merch bundle, and segueing, we are going to do a pre-ordered store, because that's the only way we can do it right now without committing a bunch of money, which we don't have, but a pre-ordered store for t-shirts, women's t-shirts, so men's t-shirts, women's t-shirts. I believe we're going to do some shot glasses, potentially some cups, and some hoodies. If there is something else that you'd really like me to look into, I will. But we are going to start taking pre-orders for that kind of stuff for a certain amount of time. Then we're going to order it all at once. And likely, if you've seen these in the past, the That's a Dub t-shirt, that's the logo we're likely going to be using for this merch bundle. But let's talk about this matchup, shall we? The season series is where everyone likes to start. And I'm telling you right now, it means jack shit nothing. And it normally means jack shit nothing, but even more so for this. Because the first game was on October 17th where the Bruins won 5-3. Okay, good. Then November 23rd, 5-2 Panthers. That's a good win for them. December 19th, it was a 7-3 Bruins win. And then in that stretch of losing 4 out of 5 for us, January 28th, the Panthers won 4-3 in overtime. Those games don't mean anything. They don't. We haven't played them in 2.5 months. They were still struggling at that time before they've really gotten to be a better team over the last couple of months. They were missing major pieces, so were we. The goalie we faced through those 4 games, there was a few different goalies we faced. We might have only seen the goalie that we were playing in the playoffs once so far. It's just not the same team. The trade deadline hadn't happened yet. We were missing high-end players for both sides. Those games don't mean anything. If we had 3 games in the past month and a half, I would change my tune on that. But we simply haven't. So I don't like looking at that series, that season series, and acting like it really tells you a lot about the teams. As far as how I believe Game 1 we're going to match up our lineups for the Bruins would be, I think it's going to be your typical top line of Marchand, Bergeron, DeBrusk. You're going to have Bertuzzi, Krejci, Pasta. I think Bertuzzi, Pasta has started to build too much chemistry for them to want to break that up, which now leaves Hall, Coyle, and Zacha on that third line. And then, of course, you're going to have Freddie, Nosek, Hathaway. I have heard word that Foligno's ready to go. I do not know if he will be in the lineup for Game 1. If he were to kick anyone out, man, I guess it's Freddie if Nosek is ready to go. And if it's not Freddie, it's got to be Nosek because Hathaway has been really good in that fourth line role. But right now, those are my expected lines. Grizz, McAvoy, Lindholm, Carlo, Orlov, Clifton, your pairings defensively. Again, the reason I kind of have Orlov farther down and Grizz up high is that Grizz McAvoy pairing is very good together, and Orlov Clifton is a lot better than Grizz Clifton. Forbort, also ready to go, is our weakest link defensively, in the game, I should say. Defensively, he's strong, but He doesn't add a lot offensively, and he gets beat in transition too often, so I would expect him to start as the 7th D and come in for injuries. The only big change I could see is Grizz down with Clifton and Orlov with McAvoy. If that happens, you start to look at the possibility of a Forbort Clifton rather than Grizz Clifton just because of how they have played together, meaning Grizz and Clifton. I don't love. For the Panthers, and I've gathered intelligence on them. This is a little unfair because the Bruins I cover every single day, and the Panthers I'm just pulling information where I can. I've read a bunch of articles, been on their pages and their Twitter a bunch lately. But you're looking at Verhaeghe, Barkov, Reinhart as your top line, Luostarinen, Bennett, and Kachuk, Lomberg, Lundell, Duclair, Cousins, Stahl, White. Those are your 12 forwards. Forsling, Ekblad, Stahl, Montour, Mahura, and Gudas as your defensive pairings. I do not know about who's in net for them. Obviously, Olmark is in net for us. For those of you who watch this channel and watch the Bruins, you know what our Bruins team is capable of, and you know what the lines tend to play like. I'm trying to take that same knowledge of that Bruins team and work it in with the Panthers. I'm going to go line by line and talk about how these two teams match up, knowing that line number 1, the Bergeron line, is not going to be playing against the Barkov line all the time. I know those lines aren't constantly going to match up. It's just a fun way to kind of go through and talk about different strengths and weaknesses. And honestly, when you break these two teams down, the top 6 is actually as equal as it gets between the two teams, right? Where the playing field is as close as possible. Because you have the Bergeron line and you have the Barkov line. Bergeron, Selke candidate, Barkov, Selke candidate. Like, these guys are fantastic offensively and otherworldly defensively. They're great. But here's the thing. The Bergeron line can't keep up with the Barkov line offensively. That's a real statement that a lot of people are going to push back on. But the Marchand, Bergeron, DeBrusk line is usually not going to score at the same rate that the Barkov, Verhaeghe, and Reinhart line would. I simply think they're better set up offensively. But if you think they're as good defensively, then you're completely wrong again. That is going to be the great equalizer in our top 6. Is on top line versus top line, the Bergeron line wins when it comes to snuffing out opportunities. The Barkov line is no slouch in that area, but they excel at putting the puck in the net, and largely because they work so well together. Oftentimes, I look at their team, and this is going to be a big part of their second line as well, as a run-and-gun type of outfit. But under Paul Maurice, they've actually become much more of a possession-heavy team that does get offense from their transition, but they don't rely on it quite as much. So that Barkov line will set up in your zone. They'll draw penalties. They will create offense in multiple ways. Whereas the Bergeron line, very similar, but they snuff out those chances at a much higher rate. You would expect that defense to not dissipate during the playoffs, and you would expect the Barkov line to shrink a little bit offensively. All that being said, because that's how playoff hockey tends to go, is the scoring chances take a drop. All that being said, this year, that top line for Florida is a microcosm of the rest of the team's problems, which is their expected goals analytically are so high. They're expected to score a lot. The chances they create are evidently very good. And yet, much like the entire team and why they have performed so poorly compared to their expectations, they don't finish their chances. This series is so scary, and I'm spilling all the beans on everything right now, because luck is going to play a role, as it always does in hockey, but the Panthers have had bad shooting luck all year, and it's starting to slightly turn around. If this series just flips it, where the Bruins have outperformed their expectations constantly, and the Panthers have underperformed expectations constantly, if all of a sudden it flips a little bit, we're in for a real series. Because offensively, this Panthers team can hang, man. And so although I give the slight edge to the top line for the Bruins because of how good they are defensively, and how much better defensively they are than their opposition, I still think when it comes to putting the puck in the net, I would tilt it back towards the Panthers. So Basically, it's kind of a wash in my book. And the second line is kind of more of the same. The Krejci line relies on transition. Pasta, Bertuzzi, Krejci, or Strozaka in there, whatever. That's a transition line that does a lot of their scoring that way. Or transition into one big, like they'll possess a little bit into one big play, which is usually a Pastrnak slapper or something like that. They're exceptional. And Pastrnak is a top 10 scorer in the league. Matthew Tkachuk is a top 5 player in the league as far as overall impact on a game. Luostarinen, Bennett, and Tkachuk not only can get up ice on you, but they set up. And no one on our team can have the impact on a game like Matthew Tkachuk can. Because not only did he have a 100-point season this year, and maybe he's not excellent defensively, but he creates the possession that turns into the goal. His forechecking, his havoc in front of the net, his presence on the ice results in more goals even if he's not hitting the score sheet. That second line is going to be a problem. And if the defense isn't clearing the puck out properly, that second line will feast. And Tkachuk's going to be a huge part of that. When you look across, though, and it's Krejci and Bertuzzi and Pasta whipping the puck around and flying by them, and defensively that second line is not good. Not that ours is. It's still, once again, kind of a, Jesus, who really has the advantage here? Because you have Pastrnak and his chemistry buddies who are finding him, and he's finding them, versus Tkachuk, who's opening all the space in the world for his line mates. It's hard to see a true advantage in here. I would lean towards Tkachuk's line because of how unbelievably impactful he is, but it's by the slightest of margins. And when you get to the third line, the wheels start to fall off a little bit for Florida. We have Charlie Coyle, who is a possession and back-checking demon. Taylor Hall, ex-MVP, fantastic on the back check, although people think otherwise, and creates offense and looks healthy right now. Looks very healthy. And then Pavel Zacha, who is 4th on the team in scoring. You have 3 really good hockey players, all of which could play a top 6 role in a pinch. Not even in a pinch for some of them. And on the other end, you have Lomberg and Lundell, who are fine hockey players. And then you have Duclair, who would be, if healthy, one of the, if not the best third-line players in the league. He's still shaking off the rust from missing low 60, 62-ish games, I believe. That's a lot of games. And he is shaking it off. He doesn't look terrible out there. But to even this playing field, he would have to go nuclear. The depth is clearly going to Boston in this area. And that third line should absolutely feast in this series. And I would be shocked if it does not. When you get to the fourth line, there's a clear winner, but not because of offense. Neither one, so there's Frederick, Nosek, Hathaway, who can put the puck in the net, don't get me wrong, but not very often. And then there's Cousins, Stahl, and White. Neither of those lines are going to do a lot offensively. But on Boston's side, Nosek, Hathaway, and Frederick are about as responsible defensively as you can get. That is a shutdown line. The Stahl line on the other side, not so much. Not even a little bit, actually. They tend to still get caved into their zone. They don't defend well off transition. They don't defend well off possession. And they don't push the puck up. The only way either one of these lines makes a true difference is if the Nosek line gets paired up with one of the top 9 of the Panthers and is able to take that line out of the equation, because I do not think the fourth line of the Panthers is capable of doing that. So that's really where the advantage is going to come in for Boston. There is also a opportunity for Frederick, who has had these moments. He's scored 31 points in the season, something like that. Who's had these moments where he goes off for a couple of games. He'll have that opportunity. And honestly, same thing goes for Nick Cousins, but I don't expect to see it. So the depth clearly goes Boston's way. Where it really turns into a huge advantage for the Bruins is on the back end. Boston boasts the top pair of a top 10 defenseman in Charlie McAvoy and criminally underrated Matt Grzelcyk. who is consistent defensively, although not everyone's favorite guy defensively because he's small, but can move the puck forward, has a nice little shot, and has great vision to get the puck up ice. Charlie McAvoy, obviously, we know that he is a 10 out of 10 in every category. That's a great top pair. And on the second pair, you have Norris candidate Hampus Lindholm. Legitimate Norris candidate. I think he's third, but legitimate Norris candidate Hampus Lindholm. And true shutdown defenseman Brandon Carlo. A guy you can put out there to, I know again, Boston fans are going to roll their eyes at this, but he does, by every metric, make our defense much better when he's on the ice. When he screws up, you notice it because it's in the back of our net, but he is a true shutdown defenseman. And your third pair is where you'd expect something to fall off a little bit. But Dmitry Orlov, who is an excellent puck-moving defenseman, an unbelievable shot, and will create points for us. And then Connor Clifton, who's in the middle of a career year, who can get the puck up ice, although he really strives at laying the body and joining the rush in opportune moments, but still plays responsible defensively. That 6 is ridiculous. And that's going to be an advantage all the way through. Orlov would be playing 22 minutes a game for 13 of 16 playoff teams, probably. We are blessed with unbelievable depth. On the other end, you've got Forsling and Ekblad. Ekblad has been completely exposed not having Weegar with him this year, and defensively has been a nightmare as far as top pairing guys go. He's one of the worst top pairing defensemen in the playoffs, which I want to be clear is about his defensive attributes. When he's on the ice, the Panthers give up more goals than they score. Done. That is true. Forsling, more of the same. Both of those guys, though, can move the puck offensively. When they're in your zone, they're a threat. It's not like they're useless, but they do not excel at defending. Below them is Mark Stahl and Brandon Montour. Brandon Montour, one of the best offensive defensemen in the league this year, a career high in points, up by, I want to say it's 73 in 79 games played. Ridiculous. Just a fantastic season for him. He's not great defensively. And Mark Stahl is old and shows it. Neither of those guys are really doing what they need as far as top 4 defensemen. Sorry, not fair. Brandon Montour is. He just needs a shutdown guy next to him, and he doesn't have that. And then Mahura and Gudis actually have played very responsible third pairing minutes, shutdown guys, can move the puck up ice. That's a good pairing, but can't play top minutes. And so although you like that third pairing for the Panthers, their top 4 leaves so much to be desired, and then you look across the ice and go, holy shit, what do we do with that? The advantage leans far heavier in Boston's direction. And in net, this is where things get really interesting. We know what Linus Ullmark has done this season. I'm scrolling through my notes here. .938 save percentage, 46-1 as a starter, and is the likely Vezina winner at season's end. Bobrovsky is not even in the conversation. A .901 save percentage, a 24-20-3 record, and may not start game 1 because while he was out with an illness, and Stephen Knight has been out for a while now, Alex Lyons came in at the end of the season. Went 6-2-1 to end the season with a .930 plus save percentage. In many of those games, 4 of which of those games, he had a .950 plus save percentage. He is a huge reason, if not the reason, the Panthers got to the playoffs. Who starts game 1? I don't know. You want to say it's going to be Lyons because of how hot he is right now, and any coach would look at that and go, I don't know how I'm going to bench you because you've got us here. But then you also look at Bob and go, we're paying you $10 million a year to be the guy. But Bobrovsky hasn't been consistent since 2019 against the Tampa Bay. Fuck. You know, I just realized that, and maybe it should be Bobrovsky. Either way, the defense in front of them are going to give up chances. And the way I see it is one of those goalies has to take the job and run with it. And is going to have to put on something special to beat this Bruins team. Which brings us to our last little section. The biggest question marks for this series. There's 3 of them. First one, can Ullmark avoid a repeat of last year? And not only avoid a repeat of last year, but continue his play from this year's regular season. If he continues his play from this year's regular season, then basically you tell me we have a .938 save percentage through the next 20 games or however long it goes, I would assume we won the cup, right? You would assume that that's enough and our offense is enough for us to win a cup, right? Last year, he flamed out against the Carolina Hurricanes. He lost the starting job to Jeremy Swayman, enough so that when we went into this season, we thought he was going to be a backup to Jeremy Swayman. That didn't end up happening. Is Ullmark going to remember that, and is it going to affect his game? Or is he going to be completely fine? He's regained his confidence through the season. He's more confident behind this Bruins team, and he's going to lead us to the promised land. I don't know. But that's your biggest question mark as the puck drops game 1 for the Bruins. That's your biggest one. The second question mark, and this one is about Florida, is who is their shutdown line? Go look at their roster. Go look at their lineups. Go look at how they play the game. Who is the line that they put out against the Krejci line to say, we cannot let Pasternak run havoc? Hold him down. The Hurricanes have that line. It's a huge reason why they tend to win series. Many of the teams have lines that they utilize in that way. Whether they're great at it or only okay with it at it isn't the point. It's whether or not they have it. And I don't think the Florida Panthers have one. Full stop. I don't think any of them are true defensive shutdown lines. And I think that's a huge question mark going into this first series. Because if you're going to put out a line against the Bergeron line, you don't expect to win that matchup flat out. And if you're going to put a line against the Krejci line, you don't expect to win the matchup flat out. You have to have a line that can lose the matchup, but hold them down offensively. Does that make sense? It's not about winning in shot totals or anything like that. But you put these guys out, and although they're not going to score, you're not going to win the matchup. They might be in their own zone the whole fucking time. But that second line or that first line or that third line, whoever's playing against them, skates off the ice, goes right onto the bench. No one's walking through giving fist bumps, you know? That is so important to have. And I do not believe Florida has that line. And if they do, we have to see it game 1. That's how they're gonna kind of turn this series. Is shut down one of Boston's scoring lines. Just one of them changes everything. Changes everything. Can they do it? The last biggest question and the last thought I'll leave you with, and you already know it. Florida in net. Who's got the starting job? And can they put on a show? And I don't mean for just one game. We saw Alex Lyons this year, and he posted like a 9.48 or something. I mean, he had a great game against us, and they won in overtime. I believe that was the Lions game. Can he do it over a 7-game series? Can he consistently do it? When Florida was an offensive juggernaut last year, and they had 120 points on the season, and they crushed everyone in differential and everything, they got into a series, a second-round series against Tampa Bay, and got smoked. They lost all 4 games, were swept. I believe they were swept. And it's because Vasilevsky completely shut them down. And on the other end, their goaltending just couldn't keep up. Which, to be fair, it's Vasilevsky going against you. What are you going to do? But their goalie has to do enough to keep them in the game. If their goalie is the reason they're losing games, then the rest of the team will not be able to make up for that. They simply won't. So that is my 3 biggest question marks. The 3 biggest things I have an eye on. Ullmark, does he look shaky? Do the Panthers have a shutdown line? And who's in net game 1 for the Panthers? And are they making the saves that they need to save? because they're going to be put in positions where there's going to be shots where they go, there's nothing I can do about that. That's going to happen. The Boston Bruins are going to score some goals. It's just, are they scoring 2 to 3 a game or 6 to 7 a game? You can see how that would make a difference. Anyway, that does it for me. I hope you enjoyed the rant and just the conversation. You know how this channel works. It's a lot of conversational stuff. Please put your thoughts below. Now let's chat, man. Let's chat. With a video like this, I'm going to try to answer a lot more, like really answer people so that we can kind of talk this through and get really excited for Monday. It's about to start. I'm so excited and nervous, but it's going to be great. Go Bees! Go Bees!